Hi friends and family, it's Leah with Leah's Simple Kitchen. Today I'm in Monterey, California for a few days. So just want to give you a look at where I'm at. I'm at Old Fisherman's Wharf. I came here yesterday thinking I'm in Monterey. I need to do what you do in Monterey. And so I had clam chowder. And I tell you what, it was really good. And I thought, you know what? We could probably make that on our own, can't we? Sure, why not? So anyway, just want you to see a couple of the sites, and we're gonna make clam chowder. This is what we're gonna need to make Monterey Style Clam Chowder. Start with a pot, salt and pepper. I have 3 cans of clams, clam juice, garlic, butter, flour to make our roux. We have cream, half and half, and whole milk. We're going to use each of those. Diced, peeled potatoes. Measuring cup. We have bacon. We have diced onions, carrots, and celery. And here we go. We're going to start by putting some bacon in the pan. So the pot. So I have a Dutch oven. My large Dutch oven, and I have a package of bacon here. I'm not going to use it all, but we do want the fat from this to cook our vegetables in. All right, so that's some pretty lean bacon. I like the look of that. So I'm going to go ahead with my kitchen scissors, and I'm going to go ahead and chop it down into pieces. That's the easiest way to do it. I do want the fat to render out because that's what we're going to use for the base of this. So I've got 3 pieces here. Thinking that's probably going to be enough. I do want small little pieces of bacon. I don't want it big chunky. What I did notice when I was in Monterey with their clam chowder is everything was really small. The dice on the vegetables, the potatoes, the bacon, everything was really small, which I'm not sure I liked that. I made mine a little larger, especially my potatoes, because, I don't know, I just like to have a bite when I'm having a bite. So my dice is not quite as small as they did it at the restaurant there in Monterey, which is okay. All right, so not bad. Okay, we're just gonna get that in the pot, let it cook and let it render. We'll save that bacon for something else. Okay, so once we get some oil, some grease in this pan, then we're going to add our vegetables and we're going to saute them and get them soft. And basically, you could use this as a base for any type of soup. Before we add the cream, we could add any type of a broth, and this could be a broth-based anything. We could make this into a chicken soup, any type of, bone broth, beef broth, chicken broth, vegetable broth. Of course, you probably wouldn't put bacon in your vegetable broth, but that's what it would do. Let me turn my skillet up. I forgot I had it on low. All right, so let's get that cooking. And one thing I also want to do is these clams. Now, I bought 2 different clams at 2 different stores because I happen to be shopping at 2 different ones. So I do want to use both of them, open one of each, because I want to see what the difference is. So we are going to chop these into small pieces also. What I don't want, and I've had at restaurants many times before, not many times, a couple of times, and I really didn't like it, is when you get clam chowder and it's gritty, it has sand in it. So they didn't clean their clams well or something. Anyway, if you've had that, it's not pleasant. I don't like that. So when I open these up, I want to see, does it look like either of them have any grit, any sand? If it does, then I won't be buying that brand again, but we'll give it a shot and see what it is. Okay, now, like I said, this is Monterey style, and I guess the difference really between this and maybe a traditional clam chowder would be that this has more vegetables and it's really creamy. So we're using all kinds of cream, half and half, and milk, so it's very creamy, just very rich and excellent. And not all chowders do that. So we'll see how that is, but if that's how they make it in Monterey, which I really liked, then that's what we're trying here. Okay, so both of these are wild caught clams, so they're not farm raised, which I don't know if that's important to you, but I definitely like the sound of that better. And we'll also see if they're packed in the clam juice, or which this one is. And let's see if this one is. I'm going to take the juice out because we might use that juice if it is clam juice. Yes, it's clam juice. Okay, so that's what they're packing in. So that's what it looks like in the can. So when I tip it over and I'm looking at the juice that's coming out of the bottom, I mean, I don't see any gritty stuff, so that's a good sign. Okay, I got my skillet on a medium-high for the bacon. Now I know that I'm going to use 2 of these cans of clams. For this size recipe, we're probably looking at 1 pound of chopped clams. But each one of these, I think, are 6.5 ounces. 6.5 ounces. So 3 cans are actually going to put us over. Not by much, so I'm sure it's fine. But I'll open up 2 of these and start with that. Okay, the clam juice coming out of that one looked a little lighter. Oh, look at that. So that looks a little different. So let's take a look at these. 2 different manufacturers. This one is Bar Harbor, and this one is Snow's Wild Caught. And look at the difference. I don't know which one I like better. Kind of think I like this better. It just looks lighter, brighter. Who knows? But we're going to try them both. And I did reserve the clam juice just in case we want more clam flavor. That'll kind of be free flavor right there. Okay. So I do have some bacon grease on the bottom of my skillet, so I'm going to go ahead and put in my onions and my celery, and my carrots. So that was probably 1 large carrot, 2 stalks of celery, and I think that was 3/4 of a medium onion is what I used for that. Okay, let's get that in there. Try to get all of that bacon grease on everything. Okay, I am also going to, at this point, add some salt. So that's not much. Teaspoon, if that. Okay, the bottom of my skillet is getting a little bit brown, which is flavor, so we're okay with that as long as it doesn't get too brown. So I'm going to go ahead and put my electric stove on 5.5, so that's a medium heat, because I don't want what you don't want is you don't want these to get too brown. We don't need these browned. We don't need them sauteed. We just want them soft. Okay? So We're not looking for a lot of color. Now, once these are soft, we could move on. Like I said, we could turn this into a bunch of different things. We could turn this into all kinds of soup. We could, now before I make a roux and make this a cream soup, a chowder, we could not put the flour in and make a roux and just add chicken stock to this and add our chicken noodles, and we have chicken noodle soup. We could use this same exact base and make a chicken tortilla soup, or make chicken and dumplings. Chicken and dumplings usually doesn't have this amount of vegetables, but I've done it that way before because I've cooked in bulk or cooked in batch and used the same base for my chicken soup as my chicken and dumplings. So it just depends. This actually smells really good with this bacon. All right, so we've got a couple of minutes to go on this. So I will continue just to let this soften up on a medium heat. If it looks like it's getting too brown, if there's getting a lot of color, then turn your fire down a little bit. I think we're good. My bacon was uncured bacon, so I want to make sure that I get that nice and cooked. So I'm going to let that go. So we'll go a few minutes and then we'll check on it. All right, so our vegetables are softened. Take a look at that. We have our bacon in there. We got a little bit of color on the bottom of the pan, which is fine. So now I'm just going to put a little bit of butter. Actually, I chopped clams with that, so let me get a different knife. All right, get our butter in there. We'll melt that in. Get everything coated in the butter. So I did take the clams and I did chop them even more. One thing that I did notice when I was in Monterey is that when I was eating the clam chowder, I could not tell if I had a mouth with a little bit of potato or if it was a little piece of clam, which I kind of liked. We don't eat a lot of seafood here, so I like the idea of not having a big chunk of clam in my mouth. So I like the idea of the smaller chunks of clam. So that's what I've done here. I've chopped it even more, even though the can came chopped. Okay, so now we're going to make our roux just like we would with any, like I've made gravy many times. So that's what we're doing here. So I'm going to take about 2 tablespoons of flour and we're going to let that cook in with our vegetables. So make sure you don't have any white showing. And something that you do not want to do is not cook that flour. So you have to cook that flour at least a minute, pushing 2 minutes if you can. Okay? So even if you have to turn your fire down to make sure that doesn't get too brown or burn or whatever, you want to cook that flour all the way through. Otherwise, you're going to taste raw flour. Okay? That's why when you make a roux, you have to cook that flour into whatever you're putting it on. And the whole purpose of the flour in the roux is to make whatever you're cooking thick, right? So that's what's going to thicken up our chowder. Okay, so I'm actually going to set a 1-minute timer because I don't want to underdo it because I don't want to taste flour in this chowder. I don't make this very often. I've made it a couple times. This is the first time I'm making it with the Monterey style, which is a little different than normal. So We'll see how that works out. And like I said, this is more vegetables and more bacon than what I got at the restaurant at the old Fisherman's Wharf. So we'll see. I really did like it, but the flavor profiles should be very close. Okay, just keep moving that around. Okay. We're about 2 minutes. So we are going to start with, let's start with our clam sauce, or not our clam sauce. How about our clam juice? Okay. So how much is this? This is 8 ounces. Very mild smell. Doesn't really smell like anything. Okay, I'm gonna start with the clam juice. Put it in the bottom and just whisk. Whisk, whisk, whisk. Okay, so I put in that whole jar, 8 ounces. Now what I'm also doing at the same time is I'm scraping the bottom of my pan because that's that bacon flavor, right? It's the bacon bits on the bottom of that pan. And that's flavor, so we want that. And now, and a whisk is best for when you're making this type of thing. If you use something else, that's great. My mom used to do a spoon, back of a spoon, and she could get anything without lumps. Okay, so once that is thickened up, let me show you. So you can see, right, we already have a trail, so we're already getting thick. I usually put my liquids in any of my soups or gravies. Well, if it's going to be like a cream soup like this or a cheese sauce, something like that, I will let it get thick before I add more liquid. So now we're going to add the 2 cups of whole milk. Okay, so let's wait for that to get thick. So we're just going to let that cook a little bit. And now we're going to get ready with the cream. So we're going to do 2 cups of cream and 2 cups of half and half. So this is going to be very creamy. But what I'm going to do instead of adding those all at once is I'm going to do 1 cup of cream to 1 cup of half and half, and I'm going to add it in like that. Because what if it's too creamy? What if it's too thick or whatever? Anyway, I like to add in things a little slower just to make sure. Okay, so we're going to let this come up. Get a little thicker, get warmer. Now, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to bring this up to a boil. You do not want to burn or scald that milk or cream or anything, right? So I am still on a medium heat, which I think I can go a little bit higher. I'm going to go to about a 7.5. As soon as I feel like we're getting a bubble and we might be getting close to reaching a boil or anything, I'll definitely add my milk in, cool it down, and then maybe cool my heat down on my stove a little bit. We're not there yet though. We're still letting this thicken up. Okay, still going. So what we want is we want a good simmer, but we don't want to boil. So a simmer would be just a little bit of boiling or just a little bit of bubbling, not a boil, not a rolling boil or anything hard boil like that. I can smell that. Smell the clam juice. That all smells really good. Okay. Now, oops, hope that doesn't. Now I'm going to add my mixture of 1 cup of cream, 1 cup of half and half. Okay. Now let's just let that come up. So I'm going to move my heat to an 8. So we're not on high, but we're close to it. And I'm just looking to get this warmed up. Start to get it close to a good simmer. Okay, so we're done with the milk. I will put my other 1 cup of cream, 1 cup of half and half. Okay, and we're done with those. That should be plenty. Let me put these back in the fridge. With the milk, we shouldn't need any more. If when we're done, we think that this is too thick, which that's always possible. If we think it's getting too thick as it cools, it might, get soups and gravies and stuff will get thicker. So as this cools or as we continue to cook, if it does get thick and more than we want, just add a little bit of milk in, or the cream, just add some more liquid in and loosen it up a little bit, and that'll work fine. All right, so we still have more cream to put in, and half, but right now I'm going to go ahead and add in 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Remember that we already added salt earlier. So we're just going to put it in now so it gets incorporated. We could have waited till the end. Doesn't really matter. All right. So we still have our garlic to put in. And let's see, how much garlic do we need? Let me look at one of my notes here. All right. So I don't have fresh garlic. I mostly use the jar just because it's more convenient. So I am going to put in, 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoons. It calls for 3. We should have 3 with this amount, but like I said, always wait and taste test before before I add the full amount of anything in. I usually wait, taste it before I do that. Okay, we're getting warm. I'm going to add in my last bit of cream in half and half. So this is actually going to be a pretty good serving size. We should be able to have this today for dinner, and I could probably put half of it in the freezer and I can have it next week or take it to work, which would be really good. All right. So what do we have left here? So we still have our clams. So let's go ahead and put our clams in now. So that was two cans of clams. We may add that third can in, right? We're just going to wait and see. Okay, what we also need to add in is our potatoes. And those are going to take a while to cook, which is fine because, whoops, that'll give give us time for everything to get hot and thickened up, right? It's going to take, I don't know, at least 20-30 minutes for those potatoes to be fork tender, right? That's when they're done, fork tender. And like I said, my potatoes and vegetables are a little bit larger of a dice than they had at the restaurant because I just like to feel the food in my mouth. I don't want to... Their chops were very small dice, which was almost completely liquid, which was okay. It was fine. It tasted great. But I guess I just wanted something more substantial to kind of chew. All right, here we are. So let's get a big spoon. Let's take a look and see what this is looking like so far. Whoops. All right, here we go. So here we are. So as you can see, we've got some good chunky stuff in there. That's going to be really good. That's the way I like it. Okay. I think I'm going to like that better than the really small dices that they did at the restaurant. Okay. And that's okay. They were our inspiration and we will just modify it to what we like. Okay, so what I do want to do is I want to look and see how much clams are in a spoonful. And I can see that there are clams in every spoon that I bring up. So do I want this last can? I think I do. Mostly because, what am I going to do with it if I don't put it in the clam chowder? I would not do anything else with clams. So I might as well put it in the soup. Because why keep it on the shelf? So again, I'm going to put my juice over here. Which, that's right. So I do have all this clam juice, which I could have put in there. And if this does wind up getting too thick, rather than using milk, I'll put the clam juice in instead since I have that. Okay. Get this lid off. All right. So I'm just going to, these are already chopped, but I'm just going to chop them even more. There's a couple of larger pieces in here that I would prefer to have smaller. So I'm just running my knife through. And clams are they're kind of rubbery. They're kind of, they don't fall apart like an albacore or you know, like a white tuna or something that kind of flakes and falls apart. Clams don't do that. So I think the smaller chop is better. Okay. So it's looking like that. Okay, I'm going to add that in. Perfect. All right. Let's get that in there. So there's a lot of liquid in here, so it's going to have a lot of broth, but there's a lot of vegetables and potatoes too. I think it's going to be a really good mix. And there's a big old piece of potato, which we'll have to break up a little later. It's still pretty hard. All right, so let's get our little spoon and let's just taste the broth here. That's really pretty good. That is pretty good. That's really nice. I like that. I don't know that I would add anything to that. I don't think I will right now. I think we'll let this go. I'm going to continue to let this just cook. I want to get it maybe up to just a slight simmer. Let's get it simmering, and then we'll let it go 10 or 20 minutes. I don't think letting it go longer is going to hurt at all. We just want to get everything incorporated. Looks like I have all my ingredients in. So I'm going to let this go, simmer, 10 to 20 minutes. We'll see. Then we'll come back, taste it again, and see if we need to add salt and pepper or if we're okay with garlic and everything, okay? All right, so we will be back. All right, we're back. So this has been simmering for about 25 minutes, okay? And it got thicker, and the potatoes are cooked now. So let's take a look at this. Nice and chunky. It's not real thick, it's still very liquid. And it may thicken up as you, as it cools, it may thicken up more. So now, last step, we need to check it for flavor. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some in my little tasting bowl, which I like to use because this is probably too hot for me. Now my husband tried this a little while ago, and he thought it needed sugar. He puts sugar in everything. And he actually put a little bit of sugar in his test bowl, and it did taste pretty good. So I'm not going to do that. I want to keep this traditional. So I won't do that, but that's something you might want to try. Just a tiny bit. You don't even really taste the sugar, just barely. Okay? So let's give this a try. Oh, that is good. I don't know, Fisherman's Wharf. I think I might have nailed it. It's very mild. So because of that, I'm going to add some sugar. Not going to add sugar. I'm going to add some more salt. So let's add some more salt. Bring that up a little bit. So that wasn't even half a tablespoon or teaspoon. And let's add some more pepper. Okay, let's do that. Get that stirred in there. So the clam taste in this is also very mild, and we don't usually eat seafood. Not a lot. So so to have a strong clam taste would not be something we would do anyway. But I think the clam in this is just very good. It's mild, but I like it. And so I'm not going to add the clam juice. I could, and you could if you liked more of that flavor. All right. I'm going to try this again. Get rid of this. All right. Okay, my potatoes are nice and soft, which is what we're looking for. Now my stove top got, it didn't get pretty hot. It didn't boil, but it was a good simmer. So I actually turned mine down to low, which is why I cooked it longer. So I turned it on low. Excuse me, it was just a gentle simmer. 25 minutes. So that's what I wound up doing. Okay. All right, let's try this. Big piece of bacon and potato. I love it. I like it. I'm not going to change anything else. Okay, this is what I'm having for lunch. Perfect. I love it. And you know what? I don't know what else I could have done to this to make it more like the stuff I got in Monterey. I think this is perfect. So the dice on the potatoes and vegetables were smaller in Monterey. Like you couldn't even barely see them. Which I prefer this a little chunkier. I like to have a bite, not a drink of chowder. Okay. So let me bring you over here and show you a little closer. Okay. So this is what it wound up looking like. Look how chunky that is. Perfect. Look at that. You can see the bacon. I can see the clams. I can see all the vegetables all in one scoop. And the broth, it's good. Okay. Now, if this sat for a while, if you took it off the burner, so I'm taking it off the heat now because it's fine. The potatoes are nice and cooked. And it did get too thick, which this is not going to get too thick. I seriously doubt it. If it does, I could either add the clam juice or add some more milk or cream into it. I don't think I'm going to have that problem. I also thought maybe I'd need more garlic, but I don't think that's the case either. I think it's really good. I think the proportions are great. Now, if I were cooking this in bulk, here's the rule I would probably follow. So for each 2 cups of liquid, whether it be cream, milk, half and half, I would add 1 can of clams. And I would add half a tablespoon or half a teaspoon of garlic. And I would probably add half of a carrot diced, half of a celery diced, or 1 whole stalk, and then probably a quarter of an onion. So that's the proportions that I would make it at if I were making this in a large bulk, like if I were going to a potluck or a party, or if the family was coming over, we were just having clam chowder. That's how I'd make it in a bigger size than this. Now, this would be excellent, really good if I had sourdough bread and I could use the sourdough as bowls, right? That would be excellent. But I don't have that, but I do have oyster crackers. So I will be having that with it. So I can tell you that when I was in Monterey, for a cup of clam chowder, it was $12, right? Which I was kind of happy to pay. I was like, yeah, I gotta have some. Where I'm out in Northern California, the ocean it's not close. So good clam chowder is something I was so looking forward to. All right, there it is. And I would probably put some of those crackers on top. Oh my gosh. Look at that. That is excellent. It really tastes good. I hope you guys try this. If you do, leave in the comments how you liked it. Whether this is going to be on your regular winter rotation, because I think it will be for me. Anyway, I had fun. I'm glad I had time to do this. So check out my other videos on my channel, Leah's Simple Kitchen. Please go on. Now's the time to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it yet. That helps me out and helps motivate me to make more. We're going into winter now, so I will get into my chicken soup and my chicken and dumplings, stew, chili, kind of winter stuff now is what I think I'll be making. So, all right. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you try it. All right. Have a good one. Bye.